special episode of Ventriloquism Weekly. I'm your host, Christopher Ortiz, and the tables are turned as Matt Bailey is the interview subject today. I chose Matt for a school project about interviews and asked him to air it so I could have the file. Actually, I threatened to post it if he didn't. Haha. So, Matt Bailey, welcome to Ventriloquism Weekly. How are you today, sir?
Other than the fact that you stole my line, I'm doing pretty good.
I had to,
Yeah.
steal your thunder. This is gonna be a good thing.
It wouldn't have been right if I'd have said, "Hey, welcome to the podcast. Now interview me." That's not good. And for all you guys wondering, the tables are turned, but the audio quality still isn't. He's coming in on the Skype, and I have my mic set up here, so couldn't send it to Iowa for the.
You just gotta come to Iowa for the real interview. I don't know.
Oh man! So what are we doing? I famously didn't ask any. I didn't ask any questions of you before this because I know that when I do interviews, I don't like to know when I don't like them to know. So I stayed away. But what am I in for today, Chris?
Well, basically, I got assigned a paper for a class in college, and it's an interview paper, 3 to 4 pages, double space, 12 times New Roman font, blah blah blah. And who else to interview but the wonderful guy himself, Mr. Matt Bailey, host of Ventriloquism Weekly.
Jesus. Okay.
So, just keep that in mind, Matt. So, are you ready for this?
Yes. Yes.
How weird is this, being on the other side?
It's weird. It's midnight, people. It's midnight.
Oh, yes.
I have to get up at 7 tomorrow, 7 or 8, and for a conference. And I just got back from a show, a show that I saw. I didn't do, but and so but it's weird. I'm excited. Don't get me wrong. I'm happy to do this for you. I've been looking forward to it, but it's certainly weird.
Get that Starbucks in the morning, man. It'll.
Yeah.
Whew. All right. Well, let's start with the most basic question.
Okay.
How did you, Matt Bailey, get started in ventriloquism?
Oh, heavens. Man, I know why the people who are 30 and 40 years old have trouble answering this question. I can barely do it at age 20.
I love it.
I think I got started. I like to tell the story. I'm not sure how true this is anymore, but that one day I was flipping between a Jeff Dunham Spark of Insanity special and Terry Fader winning America's Got Talent, like it was the final round. And for some reason in my brain, those two things happened on the same night. And when one would go to a commercial, I would check back in with the other. But I think it just more sort of evolved out of me loving performing. I went to performing arts high school, and I kind of it was really interesting. I was talking with a friend about this today, actually, at the show. We saw. I started out at LVPA as an actor.
Really?
A theater major. And I think as a theater major, and I went in and I said, I'm an actor, that's what I want to do. I was very inspired by people like Tony Shalhoub and all of these great television actors. I said, I want to do that. And I assumed that Tony Shalhoub had control. I assumed that everything Tony Shalhoub, as the character Monk, was doing was deliberate and planned and thought out and sort of nuanced, and he could repeat it with every single take that he did. And the discovery was that when you do theater, it's actually supposed to be the exact opposite of that. They tell you, memorize your lines, memorize your blocking, memorize what cues and what costumes you have to change, but don't make your performance the same performance every night. And I found that exactly. You're laughing because you know. Do everything the same except don't do it the same. And I think that's how it started with falling into solo performance, because I realized I can't not plan out what I'm going to do and work on timing and work on delivery and not churn it out the same way. So I think I really got interested in the whole thing through going to LVPA. It was a wonderful, Lehigh Valley Charter High School for the Performing Arts. It was a wonderful experience to come to understand that that's what I like to do, that I like to perform rather than act. So that's how I fell into doing ventriloquism. And because that was the great outlet for it. I can't just do straight stand up. I couldn't even act without a prop. So,
Yeah.
ventriloquism and magic, and that's been something I've been fortunate and lucky enough to do ever since. And I'm going to shut up so you can ask your next question.
No, it's a good answer. Some people are just naturally born to be in front of people for public speaking or, acting as a different person. So that's is just fantastic. How many times do you perform a year or yeah.
This is embarrassing to admit because I think it's a lot more than it actually is because my life is so consumed by wanting to do this and thinking about it, and working on the act and all of it. But I think I maybe max do about 20 shows a year. And I don't think that's a bad thing, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I would rather have 20 good shows a year than go, I need to be performing all the time on top of being a college student, on top of doing everything else that I want to do. Because, Ventriloquism Weekly, it's time consuming. It's fun, but it's certainly now, and I can talk about this, we developed a product called the Sit Stand. Myself, Jeffrey Gulk, Chris Weed, and Steve Axtell. And I'm not just trying to put this in there, a shameless plug, but that took time. That took up some 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock hours in the evening, giving Jeff a call, giving Chris Weed a call, figuring out what we were going to do. So I'm very much immersed in this business and working in it and working for it. But the show amount is not as much as you'd think for somebody who loves it. But this summer I have 10, possibly 11. I'm waiting on one other show, 10 dates. And then here at school, I don't care how often I get to perform because I'm performing in the greatest city in the world. I was fortunate enough to have a residency in my freshman year at a comedy club right across the street from the Gershwin Theater where they perform Wicked.
Oh,
So
whew.
that was cool. And I have these stories, and I don't want anybody to think, oh, he's just spouting off to name things. And no, this has been my life, and I understand how lucky and how fortunate and how just incredibly stupid it all sounds all at once. And it comes from a place of love and appreciation for everything that I've ever gotten to do. So I'm going to give you the stories, Chris, but I don't want it to sound like I'm bragging. So I just...
It's all good. I understand you have a good story and good stories to tell, good memories. How did you what let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Why did you want to start Ventriloquism Weekly?
Start the podcast. Okay, well, I'll give you the long answer, which I rarely get to give. The short answer is I was bored, and I had a microphone, and I plugged it in, and here we are. The long answer is I had asked a lot over my senior year. I had asked a lot of the ventriloquism community. I had questions. Specifically, in my senior year, we did a showcase, and I needed a dog puppet. And I had the idea in mind to do an Axtell dog puppet or a Pavlov's dog puppet or something. It ended up being an Axtell. Thank you to, and I need to approach him to be on the show. Thank you to Brad Cummings and Neil Bacon, who put me into, I think it was Neil. Yes, it was Neil, who put me in touch with Brad. I asked the question at 3 o'clock that afternoon. By 11 o'clock that night, Brad had my shipping address, and we paid for shipping, and he didn't charge any rent, but I got to keep the puppet for the first half of my first semester, I guess you could say, till about Christmas break of my senior year in high school. And I thought, you know what, I really, this community really has treated me wonderfully since I started. I said, I want to do something to give back. I said, I don't think I'm going to go far with it. I don't think I'm going to get to interview anybody that's a big name. I said, but we need more media in this world, and I got nothing going on. I have the equipment here because it's what I do. I create stuff for my show. I have a green screen back home, and I work on things. And I thought, I have all this equipment lying around. Let me see if I can give back. And the first episode was really saying, hey, I want to do this to give back, and here's what I think we could talk about. And I think I rambled on like I am now, but I rambled on about character development for 10, 15 minutes. And then the second week I said, I gotta get a guest. And I got Vinny Ewert Officer Vinnie Ewart. I don't think we give people who are officers enough. That needs to be a title like a doctor or Officer Vinnie Ewart came on the program, and that was really cool, and kind of just snowballed from there.
And you have soared, my friend. You are just doing extremely well with this thing.
You know, it's thank you. It's really really hard for me to look at it like that. It's really hard for me to think, even though I see it, I understand where you're coming from. It's really hard for me to think, oh, you've taken off, oh, you did. I just want to do the work. To me, this show, and I will have to stop doing it at some point. When a career takes off, so that there will be something, and I don't know what it is, and I'll dread the day. I'm dreading it already, that will say, you have to stop. The mission of this program, is far greater, and has become, I don't want it to sound like I'm out to be some noble person. The mission of this program has become far greater than any one person. So, like a Tonight Show or like a Late Show, this franchise, I guess you could call it, this idea of archiving these people's stories, it needs to go to somebody when it's done, when I have to be done with it, and hopefully that's not for a great while, but it has to go to somebody because it can't stop. So I know I kind of got off the question there, but thank you. I'm glad that I'm the guy that has it for now, but it won't always be me. I'm very fortunate for what has come of it personally, but I look at it and I go, I'm working towards this goal, not working towards being Matt Bailey, host of the podcast.
Do you think your life has changed at all?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, forgive me, this is airing. I have... It's funny, because in one breath, I say I work for the mission of the podcast, and in the other, I can't ignore what it has done for me. My life has changed and given me opportunities that I can't think would have come other than that. And I'm also, because of this show, what it has taught me about myself, it has caused me to pursue some other broadcasting alternatives that I can't talk about, some other things that hopefully I can do in tandem with this podcast and won't necessarily have to give it up. But what I think the biggest change is, and I don't want to, I'm going to have to name drop, but I want to do this to give you the example. I bought my first puppet from Steve Axtell and Axtell Expressions, okay? I grew up, and when I got into ventriloquism, my family said, well, there was this TV show in the 70s called Soap, and there was a ventriloquist on there, so you may want to look into that, and I did a couple years into it, and that was Jay Johnson. And then, of course, Terry Fader doing what he does, and then I got to do the midnight tour. Thank you, Darren Carr, not David Carr, Darren Carr from Australia, who took me on the tour that he won with Jeff Dunham, that he said he took me on it because I interviewed him for the podcast, which I can't air because I lost the files from Van Haven.
Rough.
Yeah, that he took me on the tour with Jeff because of the podcast, because he said you deserve something, and I don't agree with it, but he took me on it. I got to go out and work with Terry for a little bit for school credit. All of that stuff sort of happened, and I got to know Jay, and we've become close, and got to know Steve. Steve invited me out to interview Jay at CAX in 2014. All of that stuff happened at once. I think how it changed my life is it's very hard for me to accept that I now know these people. And if that's immodest of me to say that I do, that I'm working with Steve, and that, I've worked with Tom Crowell for some stuff for the IVS last year with CAX, and, that I now am kind of have my fingers in everything all at once. That's the weirdest part, that my life has changed, but it's the humbling part, because I get to see how cool these guys are. But for personal, it has shown me that I can do this, and that maybe there's a future for me in broadcasting in a more broad medium, but I hope to always get to come back to this because this is family.
And all those people that you named, they're all great, great people.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh God, I can't.
Such nice people.
Such nice people. There's not a mean ventriloquist out there.
It's like a family reunion, as some might say.
Yeah, even Jeff. Jeff, people go, oh, Jeff's a little too walled off. I'm even guilty of it sometimes. But going on that tour, he's just quiet. He's just quiet as a mouse, and just really a silent observer. So, I have not met and he's not rude in any sense. So, I've not met a mean ventriloquist yet.
Good, good. So what is a day like when you do an interview? Is it anything special? Do you have a routine that you go through?
I wake up at 11 o'clock, throw on my sweatpants, come downstairs and call Terry Fader. No.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What? Actually, it really isn't. It's trying to think. I'll talk you through the process. You have to. I know that for the essay, you have to describe the room you're in. We're in a room that's painted chroma key blue, beautiful like aqua blue. It's a multi-purpose room here in my dormitory that nobody likes to use, especially at the weird hours that I have to do interviews. I come down, I set up, and I do the interview. Lasts about 30 minutes. What people might be interested to know, and what I always open about on the podcast, is the interview is recorded separate from the beginning and the end of the interview. Today is an exception because you're hosting, and you're hosting me, and we're kind of just doing it in one quick shot. Normally, I'll do an interview that'll last anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. I try to keep it within that time frame. And then I'll come...
Okay, continue.
And then I'll come back. Yeah, today might go an hour. I don't know.
By the rate you're talking. Okay, continue. I'm
sorry. No, shut me up at some point. And then I will... and then once I've done about 3 or 4 or 5, and I can do about 3 a week, I will take a couple hours on a weekend, write out the teleprompters for the beginning and the end, come down and wrap 3 or 4, what I call wrapping, which means putting a beginning to it, the part with the ding, coming to you from the city with the blah, 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 a stupid joke, and then talking about the guest, and then I say, here's the interview, and then I say, thank you again to whomever, and then I introduce what's coming up next week, and then that's it for this week. That's it for this week. That's recorded after the interview in the same GarageBand file. And I can do about 3 or 4 of those in an hour or 2, and then I'm done for about 3 or 4 weeks.
Nice.
And then I'm actually, as of today, February 21st, I am 5 weeks ahead of myself.
Wow.
We'll be 6 by Monday.
That's quite the jump.
Yeah.
But it's good to be ahead sometimes, and it's good that you're that organized. Is there anyone that you haven't interviewed that you are dying to just interview?
Yes. And I'm not going to tell you who, because when I get them, I want it to be as much of a present and surprise to everybody else who listens as it is to me. Okay, I'll give you one. There's one I'm working on that I'm keeping to myself, but I'll tell you because she seems to be the hardest to get, and if anybody out there can help me, I want Nina Conti on this show.
She is good.
I want her to come and do the show. We had Paul Zerden. He was great. I was so tempted to ask him how I could get in touch with Nina, but to me, that's rude. To me, it's like, if I were to say to you, Chris, you were a great guest, but can you put me in touch with Megan Casey if I didn't know Megan, because I know you two are friends? That to me would be rude. That would be an affront to you. Did you just use me to get to Megan? So the only time I'll do that is like when we had Michael Knight. Michael Knight said, oh, yeah, I know Tom Mullica. I said, you know Tom Mullica? I said, can you get Tom Mullica to come on this show? So...
red light.
Yeah. So...
Do you have... I know this is kind of an odd question, but do you have a favorite interview and why? Or are they all just special to you?
the ones that scare me to death usually end up becoming the favorite. Pete Michaels scared me to death. People loved him. I had to do him in 2 parts. Tom Mullica. I literally called Michael up and said, look, Tom went on a rant. I don't know if I could air this. I had to stop the recording and explain to him what I was asking. And then when we started the recording again, he continued on his rant, now fully understanding what I was asking and telling me why what I was asking was not the right question. Here's the right question, and oh, by the way, here's what's going on with the entertainment business today. Those end up being the favorites because I don't expect them to do what they tend to do. Because it teaches me to better trust that the listeners have an ear to accept sometimes the cold, hard situations. Like, I said the H word today. I'm letting my own personality come through a little bit. I really try to keep this squeaky clean, but I think people will like that, hopefully, genuine moment. So I think anything that really shines through, good or bad, with genuine is my favorite interview. But I think every interview I do has those moments. Just because of the guests, not because of me.
Gotcha. This is a hard. I think this is a hard question. Maybe you find it easy, but what would you be doing if you weren't doing Ventriloquism Weekly?
I believe in God. And I believe that we make our own choices, but God sort of, if he's not steering the boat, he's certainly helping you.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think there's an answer to that question because I think Ventriloquism Weekly is what I'm supposed to be doing. And again, if that's narcissistic of me, and if that's egotistical of me to say I'm supposed to be the one to, I don't mean it like that. I mean, there is no answer to that question because I can't see myself doing anything in this realm, or not in this realm, from the point that I started doing it. It feels right for where I am in my development as an artist and as somebody, I guess, now going into broadcasting a little bit, pursuing that. So it really feels like this is what everything else before it was kind of leading up to, and I just feel so fortunate that I get to do it. And again, I thank God every day for putting that microphone in front of me and letting me do this.
Amen to that. Can I get a hallelujah? No, okay. That's really dorky.
Hallelujah. I don't care. It's 1 a.m.
So you mentioned broadcasting. What are your majors in college?
I'm a film and screen studies major, and I think I'm going to, first time I'm announcing this, going to double major in criminal justice.
Really?
Yes. I'm taking some criminal justice courses and it's great critical thinking too. It really makes you ask the right question. And it really makes you ask and think about the questions that you ask in terms of a system, okay? If ventriloquism is a system and I have to think of the right question to ask the guest, if I have you back in a year, what are the right questions I need to ask Chris Ortiz?
Exactly.
With criminal justice, all of my classes are case studies. So I have to sit and think, what's the right question to ask about how the law applies to this? What's the right question to ask about how this, or what was the suspect's motive, or what statute applies here? My criminology course this last Wednesday was really, really interesting because it was all about that. It was all about, does it qualify as involuntary manslaughter or is it second-degree murder? Oh my God, never thought we'd talk about this stuff on this show. And we had to answer the questions based on the facts and the way the jury, we talked about a specific case. And so, yeah, I'm loving that. And film and screen studies, it just keeping, me doing what I feel like I'm supposed to be doing, which is working in creative stuff. I can't stop. I get restless.
Very cool. I didn't actually know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, Yeah, I have to. I may not because I have to figure out what the paperwork is. But the Film and Screen Studies program is a program in the English department, so there's fewer classes. So there's really a lot of room, and it's a BA, so there's really a lot of room to add those classes. And the reason I took the criminal justice classes is because they fulfill like under core requirements that the university labels like areas of knowledge and core learning and all of this. So I took them in an area of interest that could evolve into a second major. It's really weird.
Very, very cool. We may have briefly touched on this, but what is a day like in New York? Me being in Iowa, I have no idea.
Well, I'll give you today. I'll give you today. I'll give you. I wonder if I should give you a rare day. Well, a normal day is just me going to class, coming back, and working on something, writing a podcast script or writing a event script. Like I started working on a new routine for my Axtel Vern. Steve, do me a favor. Like, send me a text for every time you hear your name on this show.
Oh, that's
Okay.
great.
You too, Michael and Tom.
All great guys.
But yeah, now I'm just name dropping for the sake of it because it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
It's your podcast. You do what you want.
No, it's yours today.
Oh, yes.
Well, so I'll give you the anomaly day. I'll give you the day that makes all of those monotonous days worth it, which was today. I woke up and I thought I'm going to do an interview with Sylvia Fletcher, which will air in March, and I'm going to continue on some other projects of mine that I can't talk about, but and some other school stuff. I saw on Facebook that my friend was coming in. I texted her. I said, "Hey, come down. I want to buy you food. There's a glitch and I have too much money on my meal plan now." So I said, I need to buy you food. So she came down. I said, "You know what? Do you need to go back?" She said, "No." I said, "Let's go see a show. I didn't get you anything for your birthday. Let's go student rush a show." And for insanely inexpensive tickets, I just got back, and this is why we're doing this so late. I just got back from seeing Idina Menzel and Anthony Rapp in If Then, and that's closing in a couple of weeks. So we had to do it. Idina Menzel is my friend Sarah's idol, and I said, let's do this. Since you probably won't get back before we do, I said, let's do this, and it's your birthday present, and because her birthday was a month ago, so I'm a bad friend because so. I said, let's do this, and don't think, oh, he splurges. No, that's the fortunate part is. I'll give you another story. Last year, I went to see Romeo and Juliet at the same theater with a group of friends. I said, "Do you have any rush tickets?" The guy says, "Oh no, least expensive ticket we have is $80." No, I said student rush. "Oh, student rush, $23." So that was the kind of situation, and we were lucky enough to get to do that online and go and see the show, and it was totally worth it. It bawled my eyes out. Grown man, I will admit it. It was beautiful.
Very nice.
Those are the days where you wake up and you have no clue that by the end of the day you'll be in a Broadway theater seat. Those are the days that make it worth it. All the days of just going to class and coming back and doing all the work.
My birthday's next month, Matt. So if you want,
you're already coming in.
Oh, this is true.
Your birthday present is hosting an episode of the podcast.
Oh, yay! Let's see here. Next question. So, what is like going to a ventriloquist convention? I always feel weird telling people at my school, like, what the heck is this thing? Can you describe it and your experience going to it?
It's become like the cliched log line advertising marketing line for it, but it is a family reunion.
Yep.
It's just awesome. It's just, and it's not July without seeing certain people. It's a family reunion, and every year it just gets better and better and better. And Mark Wade is awesome. Tom, Ken, you guys are great. I love what you do with it. You don't see politics. You don't see it. You just see the love, and that's important. And I think We get to come, love one another, and then go and create in this world and with this art. And yeah, it's just a family reunion. I can't put it to you any other way. You try to explain it using any other terms, nobody else would be able to relate to it. Just say, well, imagine if you had a get together with 500 of your closest friends, and instead of talking to each other, you all talk to yourself. That's actually no, we all talk to each other. That's an unfair joke, but yeah, that's what it is to me.
Very cool. I also know that you are involved with something called CAX. What is CAX?
CAX is a hybrid between the Cadabra, the Cadabra International, I guess you would call International Organization for Kid Show and Family Performers, and Axtel Expressions Puppet and Prop Company. What happened was, Steve said, I will have this big announcement. Steve Axtel. I have this big announcement, and Mr. Axtel, if you hear me using your first name, it's this rule I have. I call people until they tell me call them Steve or call me by their first name. I call them to their face. They're Mr. Axtel or whatever, but until they tell me call me by my first name, and then but it's easier just talking to use first names. So if I say Steve, I'm talking about Mr. Axtel. Mr. Daniel, Mark, so Steve and Mark decided that they were going to, Mark Daniel, not Mark Wade. Mark Daniel and Steve Axtel decided they wanted to do this because Steve had been saying to Mark, why don't you do something on the West Coast? And Mark was like, oh, I don't know, we should do something. Yeah, you're right, we should do something. And so they came together and they said, and I said, hey, I said to Steve, I said, hey, you have this big announcement. I said, and you've always been so supportive of me, and I want to thank you for that. How about, let's work together. Would you want to come on the show and we'll do a special report, you and your business partner, because at the time he wasn't telling me nothing, come on and do the thing. And he said yes. And I learned a valuable lesson. I will be the first to admit it, and Steve will tell you this. I pestered him every single day about who his business partner was. I'm going to tell you why. I had it in my head that it was not who it ended up to be. I'm not going to tell you who I thought it was, but I wanted to do the research to find out about this mystery guest. I had some ideas in my head. And he said, okay, finally, and I finally relented. And I realized I became a pest to him. I said, I got out to California. I said, Mr. Axtel, I said, I'm sorry for pestering you. I said, he goes, no, it's okay. I have a puppy. It's fine. He gets excited too. I said, so I learned a valuable lesson about communicating and working on special projects with that. So, and then, and this is the weirdest thing. It was the day I met Garth Brooks, who is my idol. I get back to the dorm. I've had a long day of stalking. Trying to find Garth. And I get back to the dorm, and there's this email. Matt, if you're coming to CAX, we'd like to have you at CAX. And we'd like you to interview Jay Johnson. Okay. We are inviting you to be talent at CAX. And I'm not going to go into the particulars of the deal of that first year, except to say that I am very grateful to Steve Axtel and Mark Daniel. And so it's something that I've been fortunate to be a part of. I've interviewed Jay, and I interviewed Willie this year. I interviewed Jay last year. But it's being on the West Coast, it gives it such a cool flavor. So, it's not Cadabra and it's not Vent Haven. It's something in between. And it really lets Steve shine. It really, really does. Because he has this whole thing where he gets to reveal props. And our product, myself and Jeffrey Goltz, sorry, Jeff. Jeffrey Goltz and Chris Weed and Steve Petra as well is involved. We launched this sit stand, which is a stand that has a footrest, and I know that some people have done it for their own personal use, and there's some prior art, but this is the first one that has ever been available, and we're very, very proud of it, and very excited to bring it to you. And that is sort of the next chapter for this as well, this project of Ventriloquism Weekly, and kind of, for lack of a better term, is sort of narcissistic as it sounds, capitalizing on the name, if you will, that has become that you all have taken and ran with. But CAX is just incredible. I can't describe it because there's only been two. And I think that's a good thing because you just have to come and experience it, and you really get to experience it. I mean, Men on the Moon, Steve Axtell's cover band, came and played a late night jam session on the first night, and I'd had a 36-hour day. I had my flight landed on time, and I had been stressing out a couple days before because Snowmageddon was supposed to happen here, and he was inviting people to rock out, and I got on the shaker, and it was cathartic, man. It was just cool. But we learn a lot. We have a lot of fun, and I'm honored to be involved in it, and I hope I get to stay involved in it as long as Steve and Mark will have me. So, yeah, that's CAX.
That sounds so much fun, and I cannot wait to meet Steve Axtell at the convention this year.
Mm-hmm.
I have the world's oldest man, and I call him Grandpa Eugene.
Yeah.
And it's what great quality puppets.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah.
So you mentioned the stand as like the next project. Do you have any other future plans for Ventriloquism Weekly?
Yeah, but I can't talk about them yet. I know you know. I know what you're asking about. I know what you're asking about.
Wait, I didn't even know what I'm asking about.
You're asking about the You're asking about a thing I told you that I was going to do.
Yes.
But I don't have all my ducks in a row with that, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse with that.
All right, no spoilers.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Understandable. How many episodes of Ventriloquism Weekly are there currently that are live to the audience?
66, I think. 66 or 65. Yeah. Again, I'm one or two off because I am a little bit ahead of myself. So say 65 at least. Yeah.
Very awesome. Matt, thanks again for your time.
Thank you. This was fun.
It was the best interview, if I say so myself, of Ventriloquism Weekly.
Oh, thank you.
Oh boy. Well, signing off for Ventriloquism Weekly, I'm Christopher Ortiz, reminding all you vents out there to keep talking for two.